What is the future of the Rocky and Creed franchise? Creed 3 came out in March and did extraordinarily well. Surprisingly, it was a really fun movie with a new kind of storyline, but how long can they keep this going? How long can they really make more movies in this universe? And they're going to be expanding it quite a bit, so we're going to be discussing that here today on the Geekdom Movie Talk podcast slash video series here on the channel. My name is Danny, and I'm joined by, haven't worked with him in quite some time, but we do talk once in a while, from KRW Network, Real to Real Pro. Remember, bro, you were on my channel doing a Creed, I think we did a Creed 2 spoiler review, right? That was you and me?
Yeah, we talked about the entire franchise in a podcast. That was fun times.
Yeah, no, we did. That's over on the Geekdom podcast on the Libsyn page, but I might be moving that over to YouTube at some point very soon. Now, Creed 3 is out. I think you and I talked about this, and I've made this clear to you and others, that after Creed 1, I thought that was a perfect ending to the Rocky series. Didn't want to see Creed 2. Creed 2 came out. Again, beautiful film, perfect ending. I wanted it to stop right there. Creed 3 comes out. Again, really good movie, but how far can they go with this now? What I don't want them to do is to turn this into what Lord of the Rings is, or turn this into like the MCU, where it's like a franchise, like a multifaceted franchise. I don't want there to be like a lot of different stuff, because I think it might, the more they put out, the more they could mess it up. We've talked about this, you and I, privately, but they do keep making good movies. And according to what you told me, there are plans to do more stuff. So it's weird, man, because the Rocky franchise is one of the only film franchises, maybe the only one, where all 8 movies, like there's no movie in the franchise that I would say is like anything less than like a B. Like even a movie like Rocky 5, which does have issues, I still wouldn't put it less than a B, because there's so much good things in that movie. The dialogue, the finale, George Washington Duke, the Mickey scene is one of the best scenes in the entire franchise. Like there's dumb stuff too, but like Rocky's so consistent, Rocky and Creed. Now we know that they want to make a 4th Creed movie, and there's like an anime coming out. So what do you think about all this, man? Because I liked it better when it was just a movie series and it's like legendary. Now when they're expanding out, I'm a bit worried, because I don't want them to mess up what they've already done.
Yeah. I feel like, obviously, you and I have our disagreements about whether or not they should continue the franchise past Creed 3.
Right.
I personally would love to see Creed 4 and beyond. I have no issue with this franchise getting to, going the full distance and going 12 rounds in the modern boxing era, right? You got your 6 Rocky movies, you got your 6 Creed movies, and then that's it, nothing else, right? But I do think you lose something, especially when you start talking about rapid expansion that can encompass an anime Creed series, a Drago spin-off film, some kind of Prime-related streaming series focusing on Adonis's daughter, and any other thing that they're going to really pull out of their... The reason is I don't think this bodes well for the franchise in terms of the bread and butter of what makes these films so special. I think one of the things that everyone has come to know since the 70s, since 1976 when the first one came out, these are kind of mid-tier budgeted movies that come out and you can pretty much expect them to be serviceable. You're going to have a good time at the theater, if nothing else, and they're going to make semi-blockbuster numbers every single time. But they don't come out every year. It's not an MCU movie, it's not a Star Wars movie or anything else like that. If you're getting a Creed movie or a Creed project every single year, it takes away a part of the magic of it.
It does.
And I think that that's the one thing that they're really going to have to juggle if they decide to do more content in this universe.
What I find interesting about Rocky is all the films have this underdog story sort of like mastered. Even Rocky 5 has it. But what's interesting is they've been able to take a very basic idea of an underdog fighting, a bully against, David and Goliath, basically. They've taken that idea and yet somehow made 8 movies that are obviously some folks, everyone has their favorite, right? But they all have the underdog story, but they've done it in such a unique way. You know, with Rocky 2, the comeback from the first film, Rocky 3, he trades his passion for glory, like it's in the song. Beautiful story, beautiful comeback. Rocky 4, he's got to take on this big, steroided up Russian. Rocky 5, he tries to be a trainer betrays him. Creed, next generation, of course. Adonis is trying to prove he wasn't an accident and make his father's spirit proud. Rocky, of course, being a mentor in that film, which is what he could have done in Rocky 5. Also, I almost forgot Balboa, which is like his real comeback. And then you've got Creed 2, which was like tying into Rocky 4, makes Rocky 4 a better film. Creed 3 was Adonis facing the ghost from his past. You know, Dame, who they've never told a story like this. So I'm continuously shocked that every time there's a new Creed or Rocky movie, they figure out a way to basically tell similar beats, but the stories are different and the characters are different. My concern is, how many times can you really do this before it becomes played out? Because I really thought that by now it would get there, and it's still not there. And I think the credit has to go with the great writing team they have, with Michael B. Jordan's directing, and the performances in Creed 3 are phenomenal. All the movies have great performances. I think Stallone is almost, in a way, underrated when it comes to his ability to make a movie. I think he's a great actor. He's made some legendary movies. I love Cobra, not just Rocky. I love Cobra. I love the Rambo films. Copland. He's great. But doing more, like, okay, if they do a spinoff with, let's say, Victor Drago, I don't think Victor Drago's character is that interesting. I feel like the main draw of Creed 2 was the next generation. Can Adonis overcome the son of the man who killed his father? And there's Rocky involved, and it was a well-made story. And even though Victor Drago is in Creed 3 and does help Adonis, can he really carry his own movie? I don't think so. The idea of Creed's daughter, the deaf girl, kind of going on her own boxing journey, that I think would make a phenomenal Creed 4 or Creed 5 plot, where Adonis becomes her trainer, kind of like Rocky 5, maybe she can go to the Olympics or something like that. But them doing like anime spin-offs and all this, it's no different than anything else. The longer something is out, the higher the chances of it eventually crashing and burning. I'll use a quick example. One Piece. Now, it's anime, but I want to discuss it for just a moment. I think One Piece has put so much pressure on itself that when One Piece finally ends, a lot of people are going to be disappointed. Reason being, because it's been such a long journey, and everybody has their own idea in their head of how it should end. Right? And if we don't get something to what everybody wants, people are going to be upset. And it's no different than like Sopranos or Lost, or these long shows that end up having these endings that are underwhelming. And I feel like if Creed becomes that, it's like you said, man, it's going to take away from the power of these movies in theaters. Because it's a movie. These movies can be seen by anybody without even speaking English. They're so well done that you could understand the story. Like, my dad loved Rocky. He didn't even speak English when he saw it. It's not that hard to figure out. But the more they put product out, it's just going to come off like milking. And to be honest with you, Mark, I'm just sick of every franchise doing that. I'm tired of Star Wars doing it, even though they have Mandalorian's fine, but there's too much stuff. The MCU there's major MCU burnout. And even though I agree with you that these movies come out every few years, so it's not like they're doing it all the time, it still bugs me a little bit, man, because I don't want Rocky/Creed to go down that road.
First and foremost, the anime project, which seems to be Michael B. Jordan's next project in this series. You look at interviews with him talking about what he wants to do next and whether he has any anime projects in the development. He was very coy. He's like, yes, but I can't talk about that right now. And then after Creed 3 has its big opening weekend, lo and behold, people are starting to talk about an anime series that's probably going to go directly to Prime.
Because he's a big anime fan.
Right. And as we all know, MGM was bought by Amazon, so they're trying to capitalize this. And the whole Creedverse really feels like Amazon is trying to capitalize on their buying of MGM, but also test the waters to see if something like a 007 James Bond universe can succeed in this way, right? They're using the Rocky franchise that's beloved by so many people as kind of a testing ground in order to see whether or not any type of other franchise expansion would work. It's cheaper that way. And it makes sense on a business level, but the problem is let's think about this really, right? So I was excited when they started talking about a Drago spinoff a couple months ago. Obviously, Sylvester Stallone wasn't excited, and we can do an entire other video about whether or not Sylvester Stallone has any real ground to stand on with all of the public kind of lambasting he's done of the Winkler family. There's a lot of points to be made there.
Yeah, it's a civil war, and it's unfortunate because, and you and I agree, there's at least 2 scenes in Creed 3 that Rocky should have been in, and it really sucks that he wasn't in it because it makes logical sense he's there, even though he's no longer Adonis's mentor. I really hope he comes back for Creed 4. I think the worst thing they can do, which is a big fear of mine, is that Creed 4 opens up with a Rocky Balboa tombstone. Even though Sylvester Stallone might still be alive, I don't want them to kill Rocky off screen, man. It'd be so disrespectful. You know, they did close off his story well in Creed 2, but that's why I'm saying, man, like, these movies are so satisfying that if they just stop now, you will have maybe the most legendary franchise as far as consistency goes. Star Wars couldn't do this. Most horror franchises that hit 8 movies, like your Hellraisers or your Jason or Chucky, they usually have a bunch of stinkers by the time we get this far. But yet these are still so powerful. And I really like Michael B. Jordan as a filmmaker. It's just, I don't know, man. Let me ask you this. What do you think would be a good plot for Creed 4? Basic plot for Creed 4 that would make it interesting, at least to you. What could they do in that movie to make it interesting?
I have an idea for Creed 4 and 5, which I think would be told over the course of one story and use Creed 3 as the beginning of a trilogy.
Oh, so you're doing like the Harry Potter or the part 1, part 2 thing?
Exactly.
Kind of like
and
I got you.
The idea
with a cliffhanger at the end.
Well, not necessarily a cliffhanger, but just it tells a different type of story. You and I have talked about this a lot, so I'll just kind of.
I would be okay with that if it's done right. I'd be okay with that.
So one of the things that I have been very vocal with you outside of recording is I can't get over the fact that they haven't done anything with Apollo's extended family outside of Marianne with Adonis. They mentioned them briefly in Creed 3, and that was the only thing I let you spoil for me after you saw the film very early. And
that's true. That is a factor of the film that is, even from the first Creed. Yeah, and the without going into spoilers, because I'm going to assume some people have not heard. Well, okay, we're going to go into a spoiler right now, so if you haven't seen Creed 3, you should go see it. It's a great movie. Mark even agrees. So here we go. The funeral of his mom, like, that would have been a perfect chance to introduce the family, but because they weren't there, that could be used as a plot point for the next one, saying, okay, where was the family at, right?
Yes, and so that's
They were mentioned.
They were mentioned by Adonis, who tells Marianne that his half-siblings did not treat him like family. There does seem to be some bad blood there, and that's kind of where
But how can we segue that into boxing?
Just let me finish. So,
okay.
So the fourth film, because the third film deals with Marianne's death and Adonis's, he's aging out of this. He's retired. He's hurt. He's had concussions and all this stuff. You don't just ignore this like Rocky did, right? He's finally gotten the belt back. And he still has this hunger. So you're going to bring it back into this concept that... And you're also going to use Bianca's character a lot in this movie. Because I feel like, as much as I like Tessa Thompson's portrayal of Bianca, this whole franchise has done her so incredibly dirty. She has had so much success off screen for no other apparent reason, visually or narratively, other than the fact that her husband is successful. There's nothing.
Well, she's a producer, though.
She is a producer. She's losing her hearing. She's no longer doing this. One of the things they brought up multiple times in the film they did not address is that she gave up live performance, right?
Right.
Because of all this. And even like they kept bringing it up like it's going to come back. It doesn't come back. You're going to have to bring that back in the fourth film. So you have Adonis. He's just beaten Dame. They went the entire 12 rounds. Neither of them seemingly worse for wear. Like they're still like walking around. They're not bloodied up like original and everything.
Yeah, until the end.
Well, not even then. Like not in terms of like what you see in the original. So my thought process is you open it up. Adonis has the belt. Then you bring in Apollo's son.
The other son.
I love Coleman Domingo for this. He's from Fear the Walking Dead. He's a fantastic actor. He was also prominently in the Candyman remake and other things. He's just a star on the rise. He's the right age for it, and I feel like he's the antithesis of the businessman mentality that Apollo Creed was. Adonis is the sports, the athlete, the guy who's willing to get punched in the ring for 12 rounds. This guy, this son, is the business showmanship.
So he's not a boxer, according to you.
He's not a boxer.
Gotcha.
He is very.
Can we name him Jiznak the Gusher for old time's sake?
He's very deep in the UFC boxing arena. Like he's promoting it. His whole thing is boxing is dead. Nobody cares about it anymore unless it's some kind of title fight that people know of. And it kind of goes back into Creed and Creed 2, right? Because even in Creed 2, they're talking about like, why are you fighting Victor Drago? And he's like, because you can't say Creed without Drago, right? This is the thing that you want. It's what brings in people to the seats. If you don't have people in the seats, if you can't sell a narrative, nobody shows up for boxing anymore. So you have Adonis on a very weak position as the newfound title belt holder, where he's getting called out by the people who think that this is not a real sport, and he's also getting called out by boxing influencers online who think that they can take him and that it doesn't really seem as professional as it once was.
Oh man, if you're gonna do Adonis Creed versus Jake Paul, that might actually be a good plot.
This is like the thing. So you have Adonis's son come out there and he's talking about.
You mean Creed's son?
Yeah.
Donnie's half brother.
Yeah. You have Apollo's son, Adonis's half brother, coming out there and saying, "Hey, I'm putting together a gigantic tournament for like mixed martial arts." Very similar to what they did with Warrior back in 2011.
Love that movie.
Love that movie, right? So that's what he's promoting. So Creed 4 deals with that drama. And Adonis saying like, Adonis kind of wanting to get out there and prove himself under all this attack, gaining the belt in a very weak position where nobody really cares about him. At the same time, you bring back Bianca's like, well, I want to go out there and perform and everything, but I'm doing this for my health, and you need to do this for your health too. We need to be there for our daughter. So there's this back and forth and drama between them. That way you can kind of probably bring in Rocky to give some credence to that and like kind of call back to Apollo talking to him in 4 being like, it's never done. This is who we are. We're warriors, blah, blah, blah. But in the meantime, as he's struggling with this, you have the fights being a callback and flashback to somebody else playing a younger version of Carl Weathers' Apollo Creed going into the Rumble in the Jungle that they referenced in the third Creed movie. That would be the fighting section, not Adonis, not anything else. Because remember, you have to be cognizant of the fact that like they're calling out the fact that he's aging and that he's no longer in the best fighting shape. Yes, he won his fight and they got him there. But the Rocky franchise just ignores health concerns left, right, and center, and then it gets really confusing. You have to give some credence to that if you keep going with this.
So wait, just to make sure I got you. So you're gonna not have Donnie fight at all in the ring in Creed 4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well that's risky. Now you're also wanting to switch it over to MMA. Are you sure it's a good idea to get away from?
I think if they're going to build a universe, it's the right decision.
All right. I mean, I'll be honest. I'm not sure how I feel about that right now. But okay, so he's not fighting in the film. Is he training?
Yeah, I think you would have him like beginning his training. My point is that this is one story, right? So 4 doesn't have him fighting, but 5 would have him fighting.
So 5's like the real comeback. Okay.
5's the real comeback, but 4, the fighting is the flashbacks, and you see the rise of Apollo Creed.
You don't think that people? I know you're doing the Godfather 2 thing, but you don't think that people are going to walk out of the theater pissed that we didn't see a Donnie fight? I feel like that's something that's like almost a guarantee with these films.
Well, I agree with you, but I do think that like the Creed franchise has walked a very nice tightrope that the Rocky films never really got to, where every single movie's more about family and character-driven story than Rocky ever was.
Okay, well, what would happen then in Creed 5?
I think you show the mixed martial arts competition. Like that's kind of the whole story.
But Donnie will be fighting in MMA?
Yeah.
Okay. Is he going to win?
I think so. I think you have him win on like that top note. Like this isn't for a belt or anything. It's just for the glory of like who's like the best fighter.
I mean, that's the thing is, here's the issue. As somebody who watches boxing and MMA, having a boxer transition into MMA at the age that Donnie's going to be is not going to work, and it's going to be totally unrealistic, because if he's going in there against prime MMA fighters or even past their prime MMA fighters, he's not going to be able to learn the proper takedown defense, submissions, and not even execute them like these guys who have been training in MMA their whole life. Like, I don't know if that would work, man, to be honest with you.
I agree in a sense that this would be hard to, like, it's a weird transition for sure, but I feel like it's I was thinking
he trains his daughter. See, again, this goes back to what I said earlier, which is we need to stop this franchise. Like, and it's not because they're making bad movies. That's the funny thing about this. Other franchises like Alien and Terminator and some of the horror franchises, you gotta stop because the movies are being bad. Like Resident Evil, that's a great example. Everything, like all those movies are pretty low tier. Some of them are straight garbage, but they made like 8 of them. You know, with Creed / Rocky, we want them to stop so it doesn't become Resident Evil. You know, and that's why I was saying that coming up with plots, like my idea was just you have Donnie train his daughter to win like the Junior Olympics or something. And by that point, he's totally retired for Creed 4. But then is that it? Like, is that going to satisfy people? Like, I don't know, man. This again goes back to we need to put an end to this, yo. Like, before you end up hurting the franchise, because it's going to get to the point where your idea is very ballsy. But it might be one of those things like with Last Jedi where it's too far from the familiar for a franchise and people might turn on it. You know what I mean? That's just a legitimate concern.
No, I agree with you. There's a lot of things to think about. And the problem is continuing it past Creed 3 is hard because you did end with Adonis in a power position. In a lot of the ways,
right.
you had Rocky 3 ends back in a power position where he gets the belt back. They could have just ended it there.
They should have, actually.
Well, yeah, and then they go into, like, literally you have to end the Cold War in a boxing fight in the next one. Like, you don't go much bigger than that.
Maybe Donnie fights a North Korean or something. I don't know, man. I would like to see, what I would like to see is more with Dame, because Jonathan Majors is fantastic, and I like that character a lot. Even though he is a villain in Creed 3, I like what they did with him, and I would really like it if he was in Creed 4 in a major role. Maybe Creed 4 could be Donnie promoting, I don't know, Victor Drago versus Dame, you know, and maybe he gives up the belt for that fight, but then again, we're taking him out of the spotlight as a fighter. Because they don't actually elaborate on how old he is, right? I know Michael B. Jordan's like 36 or 35 or something like that, which you can still box at that age, but you got the young up-and-coming guys who are going to eat you alive. So maybe and this would be ballsy, maybe they could do a situation where Donnie thinks that he's not done, sort of like Balboa, right? And he goes in there with a young guy. He's got the experience, so he's winning most of the rounds on experience. But then he ends up getting clobbered in round 10 and is knocked out. and the story ends with him losing and saying, you know what, like Father Time, I couldn't beat Father Time. It's a sad ending, but I think it's an appropriate one because it's realistic. And then the story could end with him just being at home with his daughter. And, or maybe his daughter inspires him to get back in the ring and then he loses. They could do something like that, kind of like with the Mason the Lion Dixon storyline.
Or Creed. Or Apollo, right?
What do you mean,
like Apollo lost.
Right. Well, he lost his life. I don't want Donnie to die.
No, but like Apollo lost to Rocky.
Oh, I thought you meant Rocky 4. Okay.
No. Like he lost to Rocky. I mean, that's what
Right,
that's what
right,
that's
Rocky
the
2.
beginning of Creed is like, who was better, you or him? Is like, oh, him, nobody better. He's like, how'd you beat him? Is like, time beat him.
Yep. No, that's true. And they could even go back to that. They could even have a scene where Rocky and Creed Adonis are on a park bench and they're like, listen, time beats everyone, man, but you had a good run and you bought yourself a nice house and now you're a promoter and, it is what it is. Then they could spin it off and have him do cameos. I don't know, man. Like I said, every time one of these movies comes out, I get very apprehensive because I don't know where else they could go. Thank God that Creed 3 wasn't the son of Clubber Lang or any crap like that. Tommy Gunn's illegitimate. Hell, maybe freaking, I don't know, Donnie's daughter could fight Tommy Gunn's granddaughter or something stupid like that. I don't want. See, that's what I'm saying. I don't want them to get to that point.
But this is the biggest issue I have with a continuation of a Rocky franchise. This series does not even understand or acknowledge its own continuity. It often steamrolls it. I mean, Joe Frazier in the first film. Mike Tyson's in the sixth film.
Yeah, they mentioned Don King, even though George Washington Duke is the Rocky version of Don King, just like how Muhammad Ali was very similar to Apollo Creed, but yet Muhammad Ali also existed in this world, so that means
it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense
Yeah,
in terms
because
of
then
when they held the title.
That's what I'm saying. If that's the case, then Creed is better than Muhammad Ali, which might piss off some of the hardcore real boxing fans. So it is a mess when it comes to that. That's why I'm saying the more these stories go on, man, the more we risk it getting bad. And I definitely don't want to see an anime unless they take your idea of doing a Creed prequel with Carl Weathers doing the voice of a younger, like of a younger Apollo. They could do that. That's a good way to do the anime.
That's a great way to do the anime because
Yeah.
didn't they mention like he has like 40 title wins? Like Apollo is no one. He's a crazy
supposed to
record.
be Muhammad Ali. Yeah, he's supposed to be Muhammad Ali.
Yeah. So that would actually work really well, but I just don't see them doing that because it seems like, to be fair, it really, really starting to seem like Sylvester Stallone wants ownership of the Rocky franchise because he helped create it, like was a driving creative force behind it. But it seems like the Winklers, if they do have creative possession of it, are giving it to Michael B. Jordan because he has passion to continue and expand it in interesting ways, but he's not going to be a thorn in their sides like, oh, I want creative control over this because like he didn't create it like Stallone did, right? So it's weird. This is a weird recreation of history where Michael B. Jordan is kind of becoming the Sylvester Stallone of our generation, where he's like this guy who's like very talented in a lot of different ways and is going to like shepherd this franchise into the future.
Ryan Coogler passed down his his spirit. By the way, I just looked it up. Apollo Creed's record was 47 wins, 2 losses, 46 of those wins coming by way of knockout. So he knocked out almost everyone. The only guy he didn't knock out was Rocky, according to this.
And again, like, and you and I have talked about this, right?
It's a little unrealistic, but okay.
I don't quite understand the reverence that Adonis gets in Creed 3 for his title victories, because I'm pretty sure they say in the interview that he's 26-1. And it doesn't make no sense because he was 16. He was 16-0 at the beginning of Creed, or at the end of Creed. Then his loss. Then then 6 KOs, which would be 22-1. Then he gets his victory, which is 23. Then he fights Victor Drago, ends in a disqualification, so he gets that victory. Then he beats Victor in a forfeiture, which is 25, and then he has the Rumble in the Jungle, which is 26. So
according to this right here, 27 wins, 1 loss, 26 wins by knockout. That's what it says right here.
27 wins by knockout.
No, 27 wins, 26 of those are by knockout. That's what it says right here on the fandom for Donnie.
Yeah, so that's my point is.
But that may be before Creed 3. They may not have put Creed 3.
No, because they say in Creed 3 that before he retired, it's 26-1 or 20. It's 26-1,
and that's
then
weird
he beat Dame.
So he's 27-1 then.
Yeah. So my point is
I'm looking at it right here.
He it seems like Adonis in continuity is kind of a paper champion. He only had 3. He only had. He won the belt, and then he only had 3 defenses, and one of those was disqualification.
Right. Yeah, the Victor Drago fight.
And then he retired. and the last fight was somebody well out of their prime after a 7-year prison stint.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it says here. It says here that this is weird. This is really weird. Okay. So the first fight with Adonis Creed and Pretty Ricky was April 15th, 2015. And then the second one was 2017. It wasn't even 2020. Like, that's something I always found weird, is that the Rumble in the Jungle was only 2 years after, because it was only 2 years.
No, because
that's what it says here, man. I found that weird, because that has to be wrong, because according to Wiki, it says that the feud with Adonis and Dame was in 2020. But I thought it was in 2022. You know what, bro? End the fucking series already, because this is just pissing me off. I'm already getting mad. They haven't even jumped the shark yet, and I'm already getting mad.
I think, I agree with you that I do agree with you that the anime, doing an anime about Apollo Creed's history would be the most story potential that you can get out of this. The problem is I think they're building that in order for Michael B. Jordan to voice a role.
I mean, he wants to be in anime so bad. Yeah. I mean, I've talked about this. I talked about it publicly recently. Funimation wanted him to play Broly in Dragon Ball Super Broly, but he was out of their price range. I don't think his voice would have been good for Broly at all, to be honest with you. But they definitely know that he wants to do anime, but maybe he will. I don't know, man. I just feel like what do you do with a Drago movie, man? Like,
I think they ruined a Drago movie in Creed 3.
Because he's in it, or why?
Because he's in it. Because he's in it. He's in it. He hasn't won the belt yet, and he hasn't won the belt. He never won the belt. He's seemingly estranged from his father, and he's friends with Adonis. But
wait, is he actually estranged from his father? I thought his father just went back to Russia.
But you would imagine his father would stay with him, right? I'm not saying he's estranged from his father, but you would imagine after the relationship that was built in the second one, he would be there.
I agree with you. They didn't want to give your boy Dolph Lundgren another payday. Yeah. I mean, I thought they were going to do a gimmick where, going into Creed 3, that Victor was going to train Donnie, but then I was like, wait, it doesn't really make that much sense, because Donnie's a better fighter than Victor. Victor's just all power. And that's what I'm saying. I don't know how a Drago movie would actually be in any way that interesting, because I don't think he's just a big dumb Galuka. He's not even that interesting of a character.
Well, that's
his
the thing.
Dad's more interesting.
They took away the dramatic element of the father-son relationship is something worth exploring, but they seemingly paved over that in between movies. Now, I guess you can set it in between.
The real villain, bro, is Ludmilla, bro, the wife, the mother. That's the real villain of Creed 2. That bitch. Bitch.
I don't think you can really do it anymore after watching Creed 3. Before I saw the movie, I thought there's potential here, but
what if they said it before Creed 3 and after Creed 2, and they explain what happened to the father?
Then I would like to see it.
Okay. I mean, that's fine. Like I said, I'm going to stick with it. I don't want any more of these movies, dude. I think Creed 3 is a great ending. I love the Dame character. maybe he can get a spin-off. But I don't know, man. I think I like your idea though of doing more similar movies to Rocky, but like Karate Kid, we had the martial MMA movies, kickboxing movies that maybe are in the same universe, maybe, and you have cameos, but not, the boxing stuff. I don't know, man. I don't know how I feel about that.
It's getting iffier. The more and more I hear about what they want to do, the less I'm excited.
Yeah, I understand that. Anyways, we'll see what happens, yo. We'll see what Michael B. Jordan cook up for Creed 4. Do you have any final thoughts or anything?
I would really like to see Dame again, but I don't
Same.
anticipate him being a main focus in the future. I just want them to be friends. I feel like there was no bad blood between them in the end, and
I know. It was amazing.
yeah, like if
Do you think they should kill him off in Creed 4?
No, like one of the reasons I love the fact that they could do, I would love to see him training Adonis for like a mixed martial arts fight. You wouldn't imagine that, if he's been locked up and everything, that he would be working specifically on boxing that entire time. He might have gotten himself in scraps. He even said that he was put away longer for bad behavior. So like treating him how to fight dirty and fight like a street fighter. I don't know. It would work. That would work for me. That would be a Rocky 3 Apollo teaching Rocky moment.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, they could always go back to what they did in Rocky 5 and have the climax of one of these movies take place in the streets. I think that street fight with Rocky and Tommy Gunn is criminally underrated. I think Terry Funk did a great job in choreographing it. Legendary Terry Funk, and I really love that street fight. Yes, it was different from the other movies, but that could work, and maybe, for all we know, maybe he can get into a street fight with the other Creed stepbrother. I don't know. I at this point, we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel for ideas, so whatever happens in Creed 4, hopefully will be good, because right now, like, I can't come up with a story, man. So, if you have a story, let us know in the comments, because maybe somebody can come up with something creative. And please do something creative. Don't do like a rehash. Do something that hasn't been done before. Maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
Of course, no kids fighting kids.
Yeah, no kids. Unless it's like his daughter going into the Junior Olympics at like 17. That's kind of okay. Like, I like that idea of him training her to be in the Junior Olympics. That should be the last Creed movie, whether it be 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever, that he trains his daughter. But here's the question. Do they even let you fight if you're deaf?
I have no idea.
In UFC, they had a deaf fighter, Matt Hamill, not to be confused with Mark Hamill, but I don't know about boxing. So maybe we'll find out. Anyways, y'all, take care. Hope you liked the video, and we'll talk soon.